Good morning, Colts Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the No Horsing Around podcast, brought to you exclusively by the Lounge Room Network. As always, we're just two dudes talking Colts. We're your hosts, Steven and Zach. And we're going to do something a little different today, Zach. We are just going to answer social media questions, man. The whole show is social media sessions.
Love it.
I mean, we're excited because this is kind of something we've been building towards. We've got so many questions going into this off-season break that we wanted to answer as many as we could, and we figured, man, the best way to do it is to just have a whole show. So, as always, we ask you guys to please rate, review, subscribe, share, follow, whatever it is you do on whatever platform you do it on. We ask you guys to please do it. And Zach, I got to tell you a funny story when I talk about reviews real quick too. So, and the world can know this. If you go on our Apple podcast, generally takes a couple of days for a review to come through. And I pulled up the reviews. Every once in a while, I'll pull them up, especially if I know someone who's going to be leaving a review. I want to make sure that it goes through. Shout out to Vinny because he could never get his through. I don't know if it's a Canadian thing. But I pulled it up today and I look at it, and my 10-year-old daughter has left us a 5-star review with a lovely little write-up that says that she loves the podcast. She wishes we did more episodes and that she loves me. So it caught me so off guard.
Hey, that's a win right there, Steve.
It is. For those who listen, she's never thought I'm cool. She says I'm not cool enough to say the word pod, but apparently I was cool enough for her to leave a review one time. So we do what she does. Just go over there, hit that 5-star. My daughter's 10 and she knocked it out in like 2 minutes. That means anybody else can do it too. So, man, Zach, before we jump in, for those who are watching on video, I'm going to give Zach the floor real quick to pump the merch, because if you're not on YouTube, get over to YouTube because Zach is rocking one of our shirts. So I'm going to let him do it.
Yeah, man, I'm so proud to have my first shirt, No Horsing Around merch right here. I got that. I grabbed myself a sticker. I got the Tri-Blend. Fits great. It's a lot like a kind of an Under Armour or a Nike, a soft material. It's pretty cool. But yeah, man, I'm just super excited to be wearing the merch. But beyond that, I know we plugged that. I just want to say thank you from the top of the show. We always do it at the end as well. But man, if you're tuning in and you decided to tap in and just listen to what we got going on, it's just awesome, man. I mean, the response that people are giving us, Steven, is incredible. And one person I wanted to kind of do a shout out, and I'm going to try to do this more often. Wyatt Law over there on YouTube, man. I mean, that dude is legit. He's always following us. He's always leaving comments. He's always interacting with us. So Wyatt, man, I want you to know that I see that you're checking in on us and you're listening to what we got out there, man. So I just appreciate you. And I didn't want to forget to do that because I've been planning on doing that for a while. I want to shout my people out from the very beginning, so they can be like, hey, we're a part of this show. And that's why we do this podcast. So I'm excited, man. Our favorite part of this is Twitter questions, or just questions in general from all different platforms that we get them for. So, Steven, I mean, let's just jump right in, man. Let's just get right after it.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready. So, we get them, like Zach said, we get them from all over, and you guys know how to get a hold of us. It's Steven Burton 86, Colt Nation 365, at No Horsing. Y'all know how to get us. You know how to find us. You know how to reach out. And you guys do it, most of the time when we put an ask out, I mean, it's quick. We start getting bombarded. Facebook, y'all have heard me joke all the time. Colts Facebook sometimes is a terrifying place, but man, oh man, do they show up and show out when you post it. I mean, it's immediate with the questions. So let's just jump right in, like you said, man. So the first question is from Rudy Finesca Jr. And his question is, so nobody ever talks about losing Sirianni. That's my biggest question. OC is the second most important coach. Frank didn't have to worry about it. He was covered. Now what?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, he's right. And nobody really does point that out. I think Sirianni has and had a great mind for the Colts. And he was just kind of that person for Frank that he could always lean on him when he was installing that game plan, throughout the week. He had just a guy that he trusted 100%. That being said, you've got Marcus Brady, you've got several people, kind of waiting in the wings to kind of help out in that situation. And although it'll be a loss, I don't want to make any mistake. And this is Frank Reich's offense. At the end of the day, I think this is Frank Reich's offense. And you'll see that shine over in Philadelphia. I'm sure of that. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. It's a big loss, but it's a loss that in football, if you're doing the right thing and you're having good football teams year in and year out, that's just a war of attrition. You're going to lose people as it goes. And there's no bigger compliment to a head coach and to a general manager to say, hey, everybody wants my guys. They covet my offensive coordinator. They covet my defensive coordinator. Hell, they even covet, Ed Dodds in the front office. They're always getting interviews. So shout out to Nick Sirianni. I love him. Wish him luck in Philly, except if he ever plays against us. I hope he gets that big fat L,
Yes.
But anyways, yeah, it's a great question, by the way, Stephen.
I mean, it was a really good question. I mean, it really, you wonder if it's not been talked about because people viewed it as not a good hire. But you said it best too, is the best way to describe Sirianni to Reich was he was probably his closest confidant in the building, and he was his sounding board. A lot was said that Sirianni didn't call the plays on Sunday, but that didn't mean that he wasn't installing the entire game plan throughout the week. So, I mean, it's going to be a loss. And it's the first time the Colts have lost coaches. I think me and you joked and said, I've never seen a staff that didn't produce a Lombardi trophy get pillaged the way the Colts did. I mean, just the amount, and a huge chunk of that obviously is Sirianni leaving and taking Colts coaches with him because he's comfortable with them. But I mean, it's going to be an interesting kind of transition. I'm really, really excited about Marcus Brady. I'm excited about the hire, kind of his background in the CFL, and he's very wide open. I think he'll match really well with Frank. So, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see how Sirianni does. Next week, just a little plug for her. I'm going on the Kelly Green show, which is on Eagles Unfiltered with Sports Illustrated, to talk about Sirianni. When he first got hired, I got to jump on a podcast with, I think it was Die Hard Eagles. And they wanted to know about Sirianni because there was just so little known about him outside of Indianapolis. So that's a great question because it's not something that has been discussed a lot because so much more has happened for the Colts since then. So great question, Rudy. Next up is, let's see, we're going to go with Jeff Nordmeyer. Can Paris Campbell stay healthy? I mean, that is like the $1 million question this year right now, is it not?
It's the $1 million question, and I think his career will be defined by this year and his health of this year, in my opinion. It doesn't matter at this point. If you play this year, your third year, and you have troubles with injuries, I think that really spells, a bad long-term projection for Paris Campbell. I root for him just because I feel like there's something there, man. And I feel like it's a guy that really wants to play football. I just think it's just this freakish, weird thing. Because, I think we talked about it in the past. He didn't have injuries in college. He's not an injury guy. It just so happens when he's in the NFL, all of these crazy accidents happen, these random, just bad falls,
fluky stuff,
bad luck. You're like, what is going on? But for him, he's the ultimate X factor. I know a lot of people have him picked as kind of one of the breakout players for the Colts this year. And I think, shameless plug, Stephen Burton. I think though, honestly, if he can just get back on the field, start catching the football, get his feet underneath him, say, all right, I've been hit hard. I made it through. I live to see another play. Mm-hmm. I think then his confidence level goes up. Then he starts to stop thinking about playing football, and he just plays football like he has his whole life and just uses his God-given talent. I'm rooting so much for him, Stephen, just because I hope that man gets a chance to show what Chris Ballard saw in him. And, took him in the second round over a lot of big names that was kind of coming through that year. That wide receiver class was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
But if he stays healthy, you got a really, really good wide receiver of the future for the Indianapolis Colts, and we need him to stay healthy because he will determine the projection and the direction that the Indianapolis Colts go moving forward. Do we go back at it in free agency?
Mm-hmm.
Do we go back at it in the draft? Or are we good with Paris Campbell being our number 2? And does the new era start next year, not this year, but next year, of Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell on the outsides? We'll just see, man, but great question.
Yeah, I was going to say that's such an important note to make too, is that there's a lot of people who probably say, well, if he doesn't pan out, you drafted Michael Pittman Jr. Michael Pittman Jr. wasn't drafted with the idea that he was going to be replacing Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell is expected to show up. And I think, obviously I'm biased, shameless plug, like Zach said, I have him as my breakout player of the year. I think he's going to have over 1,000 yards. I think he's going to stay healthy. And I agree so much that it is make or break for him. It is make or break. If he gets hurt again this year, he is officially labeled as injury prone. Right now, they're not doing that. They're not labeling him as injury prone. The depth is a huge key. And I mean, I don't know. For those who are listening too, you obviously have seen last year with Philip Rivers, he was showing out in the offseason with him. And that's the top coming out of these last 2 weeks too. Is Paris Campbell looked crisp. He looked fast. He looked healthy. He's 100% clean bill of health. I mean, he's going to get more reps. Carson's going to be throwing. Carson's already come out and said over the next month and a half, he's going to continue to meet and throw with the receivers. So, I mean, he has no excuse to not have a good year, but he's got to stay healthy. Selfishly, how about no more end arounds is kind of my thing. That's hashtag. I'm going to get a shirt that says no more wide receiver reverses. I just don't. But I mean, hopefully, it's a great question. I mean, I'm going to say I think he stays healthy. But who knows, man? I mean, the things that happened to him were so fluky over the last 2 years. I think we joked, his rookie year, he broke his hand, broke his foot. Who does that? Like, like that year we had so many broken hands too, which was just insane. Okay. So great question, Jeff. Thank you, man. Next up is Brazzy Walker. Can Carson make up for what Philip couldn't do physically? So I'm trying to think of how we answered a question really similar to this last week. And I'm trying to figure out I feel like this is maybe slightly different. I'm not sure if he's talking about the mobility because, everyone knows Philip had no mobility. So yeah. I'm going to let you jump into the water and take this and kind of run with it how you want to, and then I'll answer too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the quick answer is yes, he can do what Philip Rivers was not able to do. A, he can drive the football down the field. B, he can move in the pocket and he's mobile. I think it's very important in today's, era and age of football to be able to be mobile. That being said, I don't want him to be reckless when he's mobile. He doesn't need to be a hero. He doesn't need to be out there trying to run people over. Take the first down and slide, man. I mean, it's just that simple. Or throw it away
when the journey is over.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Know when the journey is over. And I think he can be a lot of those things that Philip, didn't have from a physical standpoint. But the bigger question is, and the follow-up question to that is can he get it mentally like Philip did? And that's the hard part. Like, that's what separates truly great NFL quarterbacks from just your average and your run-of-the-mill quarterbacks. So, I'm glad he asked that question. And I was actually pondering this. I had a long trip over the weekend and just traveling with some family. And two guys come in mind for me if you want a comp of a career trajectory of how Carson could be if it's positive. A would be obviously commonplace right now, Ryan Tannehill. He came out of a system that was not a great ran organization. They didn't get him a lot of help. He had the injury history. He comes to a system where he can run the football. He can rely on a better offensive line, and he can play a more fundamental style of football, and they don't ask him to go out there and do just this crazy stuff. And it's translated into wins and being a pretty successful, productive quarterback. But the comp I hope he turns out to be would be a Carson Palmer, how he was late in his career. You know, he had all of those injuries early on. Then he gets with BA, he gets with Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is just like a quarterback wizard. You know, I mean, anytime he gets with a quarterback, he just like it works out for some reason. We've seen him, you know, he was with the Horseshoe, albeit 1 year. But I think that Carson can be special. The jury's still out if Carson's going to be elite, but I don't think that Frank's ever going to really ask him to be elite. Yeah. I think Frank just wants him to be really good and to not turn the football over. Just make the right football play, and then the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. We've talked about that, I think, a lot, that you're not really asking him for 2017 Carson Wentz. You really want 2018 and 2019. You really just don't want 2020. You know, he's not going to be asked to do it. The backfield's loaded. You know, we talked to Mason and Ian last week about that too. I mean, when you have Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack, like he's not going to be asked to do a lot of it. But I think it's important, like when you talk about physically too. So I wanted to make sure I got this right. Carson Wentz is 6'5", 237. He is a large human being. So, and then you hear the stories coming out too of Michael Pittman Jr. saying he threw me a pass, like he threw a 60-yard out route. And he's like, Michael Pittman Jr. halfway through realized, oh, dang, like I got to run. Like I got to run. I got to go all out to get to this ball because he's going to overthrow me because his arm is just, he's got probably, and it's been forgotten, he's got one of the biggest arms in the NFL. So I think what you said too, the biggest thing is going to be that mental, you know. I think we gain more in his physical attributes and what he can do physically. I do think there's a drop off because Phillip Rivers was just surgical. Like he knew so much. It was so, I feel like, understated how much he controlled the offense. And like, just let's not forget, like you're talking no training camp, no OTAs, no preseason, no throwing sessions, and Phillip Rivers did a great job. The mental thing, yeah, I think the mental thing is the biggest. It's going to be really interesting to me. I mean, I love seeing the stuff that we're seeing. I love the game of knockout with him and Mo Alley Cox. Like, and you see his face, and he, like, I think I tweeted something out about it and saying, like, he looked like, don't talk to me about the mess of not a good teammate, and he's mentally broke. He looks so happy to be in Indianapolis right now. So, I mean, I call me biased. I mean, obviously it's a great, got the Wentz shirt on today, but I think he's going to, I mean, I've said it. I think he's going to have a really good year. It's going to be really interesting. Okay. So next one up, dude, I love this one. Okay. This is from Eddie Jones. Like we got a ton of questions. I highlighted this one because I didn't want to miss it. Will Jonathan Taylor run for 2,000 yards this season?
No.
So quick.
No, he won't run for 2,000. But here's why. Because they're going to give Nyheim a few carries. Marlon Mack will be out there to spare him. Now, if you told me if he would run over 1,500 yards this year, I'm taking the over 1,500 personally. I think he's going to be. You've got 5 running backs in the NFL that are special and they're above the rest. And Jonathan Taylor, in my opinion, will be one of those 5 this year.
Yeah.
I think, you've got Christian McCaffrey who catches, 300 passes a year and runs for, whatever. And then you've got Kamara, who's got his own little niche. Saquon Barkley, if he can be healthy. And then right behind him, dude, I mean, you got Jonathan Taylor, I just don't think people quite understand how good that Jonathan Taylor is, man. I mean, the dude is just legit as far as talent. And he's really worked on his hands. I think he wants to be that guy that's a 3-down back. I think he wants to. The 2 things that has kind of stood out to me this offseason, Stephen, the 2 things he worked on, I haven't heard a whole lot about his running style. All I've heard is he's trying to catch 100 passes a day and he's working on pass blocking on third down because he doesn't want to come off the field like that. He's that type of player, and he realizes, to be that special type of running back in the NFL, you got to do that type of stuff. So yeah, man, I think he's going to be a really good running back. And in fantasy football, just so you know, if you don't take Jonathan Taylor very early, you're done this year, man. I mean, the boy's he's gonna be a first round
last year.
He's gonna be a first round running back.
Oh yeah. Okay. So before I answer my question, I 100% agree. I don't think, and it's like the whole Carson Wentz argument. He's not going to need to. There's Mac. They're going to not overload him. But so 2 quick things for those who are watching on YouTube. You saw me completely, utterly lose my mind when Zach started talking. Had nothing to do with Jonathan Taylor. I love the fact that Zach conveniently left Derrick Henry out of the top 5 of the running backs in the league.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not a mention of him.
Hey man, like seriously, like you can't take anything away from Derrick Henry. But if you ask me, like here in my opinion, if I'm a general manager, the only running backs that are worthy of a second contract that is big money, and when I talk about big money, I'm talking about anything north of $10 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot catch the football and run the football at an elite level, there's no sense in signing a running back. And that's where I think that Derrick Henry, although he's a great runner and he had a great year last year, I don't want to take anything away from him, although I do hate the Titans. We all know that. But he can't catch the football in the ways that these other guys can.
Yeah.
So when I game plan for Derrick Henry, I game plan to stop him in the run game, right?
Yeah.
So when I game plan to stop Christian McCaffrey, I have to game plan now for the passing game, the running game, everything, all of these different elements. And it just changes the landscape of that position because now you're not a running back. You're a running back and a wide receiver. You're 2 positions in one. So that's why I kind of left him on the back end of that. I feel like really and truly, I think at the end of this year, if Jonathan Taylor has the best year as a running back in the NFL this year, I'm not surprised. I mean, I know that's a homer statement, but like I'm really not surprised. Like he's that special. Just a great kid, a hard worker, and I think he will have a better year this year than he had last year. It's going to be a big step for everybody in the NFL.
Well, and it clicked. That's the thing. Like it clicked for him. And I think your points about Derrick Henry are really, really valid. Because of the fact that he doesn't really catch it. Look no further than the game in Tennessee last year, right? We go down to Tennessee and we get up big. And Derrick Henry's a non-factor because he can't catch the ball. So he's out of the game. Like he was no factor whatsoever in the second half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter because he wasn't a valuable asset in the game. So they just put him on the bench, and if you think about, in my opinion, the best running back I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. I mean, I love Marshall Faulk. Y'all know that's a big reason why I'm a Colts fan. LaDainian Tomlinson just changed the game, in my opinion. And that's where backs were headed, 50 to 75 balls. You got to be able to catch it. You've got to be able to run block. And Jonathan Taylor's he really does, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I was slightly nervous when they made the pick because of the worry about the tread on the tires coming out of Wisconsin. 3 straight 2,000-yard seasons. Wisconsin running backs struggle in the NFL. But, man, I mean, when it clicked for him halfway through the season, no other back. And just one other thing before we move on from this, Pro Football Focus totally didn't even have him in the top 10 running backs going into next year. Because Pro Football Focus is stupid.
Brash, man. I mean,
it's insane.
I guarantee you right now, I don't care cold or not cold, I guarantee you right now, Jonathan Taylor plays 16 games. I would bet anybody $500 if they want to DM me right now that he is a top 10 running back next year. I'm that confident. I mean, it's not even close, man.
I mean, he just not to go off on it, but like he looked like once he realized these are where my holes are. Once he realized one cut and go, the speed takes care of it. I mean, we all know, like Zach always points out, look at our video, our intro video for the YouTube channel, and you see like the pull away against the Jags. We all remember the pull away against the Raiders where just no one caught. And those are secondary players who they're like track stars and they couldn't get him. I mean, I would be more shocked if he's not a top 5. I think he completely has the ability to rush for about 1,500 yards, like you said. Okay, so next one up, Scott Rennie. Who's going to be wide receiver number 1? Ooh.
Wide receiver number 1 this year. Wide receiver number 1. T.Y. Hilton.
I'm with you.
I'll take T.Y. Hilton. I think when it's all said and done, I don't know. I got faith in T.Y. Hilton. I think he'll come out. I think he'll bounce back, and I think T.Y. Hilton will benefit more than anybody in this lineup from having a guy who can throw the football out there to him. I really do. He, I mean, all I can see is T.Y. Hilton and Andrew Luck, and I know that was a while ago, but that connection was real, and it was because Andrew had the ability to hit him down the field and let him do what he does best. Pittman is the clear choice, and most people would say Pittman, and I won't argue with that very much. But I just think all in all, I think Pittman's going to have a really great second half of the season. I think he'll still be finding his way. That first half of the season, I think Pittman will find what works best for him and his connection that he has with Carson. And you'll probably see the changing of the guard really as the season goes. You'll see early on, T.Y. will probably come out and really, really shine. And then as the season goes on, I think you'll see Pittman kind of be that dog, that guy at the end of the games where it's, 3rd and 3 and you need to throw a slant for 2.5 yards and he just has to bulldoze somebody for that last half yard and stick the ball out there. I think he'll be your guy. There's really not a wrong answer. It's 1A, 1B, but gun to my head, I still think T.Y. Hilton will probably have the best stats on this football team this year.
Yeah. So if you're asking me wide receiver 1, I'm going to go Michael Strawn. No, I'm just kidding, you guys. I wanted to see how many people
cut the podcast now. It's
boom, done. No. We talked about this last time too. I'm fully on board with what you're saying. I think the season starts with T.Y. Hilton being the number 1 wide receiver. I think it transitions about halfway through towards Michael Pittman. I think the idea is that in a dream world, like perfect scenario, Michael Pittman becomes 1, Paris Campbell becomes 2. Like that's the dream scenario, right? That's what everyone's hoping for. 3 can be Pascal if you want to bring him back. It's an ideal world. That's what they want. I don't think, contrary like we joked, our boy Michael T, I'm not on the same page. I don't think Pittman is 1 yet. He put together a great second half of the season. You do wonder what it could have been like had he not had that compartment syndrome where he got sidelined. But he's not quite ready. And I loved the arguments that were made for it too. When you become the wide receiver 1, you are getting coverage rolled to you. You are getting the best cornerback on the other team. And I don't think he's there yet. T.Y. knows how to work that. And, I've been on record saying I think T.Y. has a tremendous year. I really do. I think he's going to have – I think 10-plus touchdowns is kind of what I'm thinking for him. I just think, like you said too, Carson is the first quarterback he's had who has the combination of the massive arm and the accuracy to where he can get it down the field and he can get it to him. Jacoby could get it down the field, but he could hit the goalpost, Phillip Rivers couldn't get it down the field all the time. So I think he's going to have a huge season. I think he starts 1. I do think by the end of the season, we'll see kind of that transitioning to where it's Michael Pittman becomes the number 1. But that was a great question. I love that one.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next one. So this is an interesting one because I may have missed this. So I'm going to lean on you with it. It's from Chadwick Horty. And he asked, can Kwity stay healthy all offseason and bring much needed pass rush we've been missing? So the reason I say I'm leaning on you is I didn't know, does Kwity have an injury history? I didn't think he did.
I think he's basically just trying to allude to the fact that can he stay healthy? And the answer is, I hope. I mean,
Cross your
I
fingers.
don't
God
really
bless.
have a good answer to that, but I mean, Quiddy's going to be asked to play a lot of football this year, and he's going to really learn the game. I think Colts fans should expect Kwity Paye to have 6-7 sacks this year, and that's a really good season for a rookie who's learning the game and learning the ropes and learning how it is to take on true elite left tackles at the NFL level, and just how to play the style of football that it takes to win, and have that rate where you're going to go out there and eventually have 10, 12, 13, 14 sacks in a season. But it's going to be a learning curve. I mean, there's going to be frustration. Yeah. But the one thing I would ask for Kwity this year, and the one thing I'm hoping, we all know he has a motor. We all know he's a 3-down guy. He's not scared to play against the run game. But I just hope that he puts pressure on the quarterback, even if he doesn't get to him, even if he's not getting those numbers and getting sacks. As long as he's pushing that pocket and constantly driving that quarterback off of his spot, hey, that's a win for a rookie, man. That's a rookie who eventually will learn how to be one step faster, one move better, and eventually he's going to start getting his hands on those quarterbacks and taking them to the ground. So health-wise, I think so. I don't have any reason to believe. It looks like early on, and I know it's just, they're playing against air. They're not playing against anybody. Looks like Tyquan's on one side and Kwitty's on the other, going right into it. I wouldn't read – if I'm a fan and I'm listening to this podcast or any podcast, I wouldn't read anything into depth charts really hardly at all right now. That being said, this is your initial depth chart. It's it's a baseline for fans to go by. It was my understanding that Will Holden was your left tackle out there, was kind of the one out there with more than Tevy was. And another interesting fact, a little side jab to my co-host, Stephen Burton, TJ Carey was out there taking the ones over Rock Yassin. But I think that's more of they want Rock to go out there and win his job. You know what I mean? I think that they're telling, okay, Rock, this is it. Go out there, fight, win this job from TJ Carey. Just kind of like TJ Carey won the job from you last year. Go out there and take it from him. I think they want him to have that mentality. So we'll see, man. And I've said this all along, and don't be surprised if we get all the way up into camp or even into camp, last second cuts, if we pick up another veteran cornerback. I just feel like Chris Ballard will add another guy on the cornerback position just for depth purposes and having a nice veteran presence back there, especially if Rock doesn't have a good camp early on.
Yeah, and that's the most interesting part. Like, not to get sidetracked with the corners and with Rock is we're on like a month and a half break now. Like, there's nothing. Like, there's no OTA, there's no mini camp coming in. Like, we got nothing till training camp. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really, really quiet. You're going to see stuff like Carson. You're going to see like side workouts and things like that. But like that's a great point you make about we're not going to see, I don't think, any pickups until you get into camp, because there's just nothing to like see like, oh man, he really showed out like in their mini camp and they don't want him. But so with Kwity, I agree. He doesn't have an injury history, but I do think it's really interesting. As much as we don't want to read into the depth chart, I mean, Kwitty's day one starter. Like, he's the epitome of round one pick. He's going to be a day one starter. He came out and said, right. He said he's going to take majority of his snaps at the right side defensive end is what he's thinking, which, I mean, man, you talk about pressure that's going to be put on Ben Banogu, who, in my humble opinion, sounds like he's not handling it that well from what you hear on during his media availability and how he sounded with the reporters and kind of not really taking questions about last year, refusing to talk. He doesn't sound like he's taking it that well. And then you've got Kamoko, who yet again, it's two players who have make or break seasons, and you lump them in there with Rock too. I mean, they're all under make or break, sink or swim. You want to see them do something like Tyquan did last year.
Ben Banogu will not play for the Indianapolis Colts once the season starts anyway. So
is that
That's just my
Y'all heard that
prediction.
hot take, man. Ben
Yeah,
Bannigan will not be on the Colts in 2021.
Nah, he's not making the 53 in my opinion. But
Did
that's
you
just
see
me.
his media availability? I mean, he came at Zach Kiefer, man. He did not
Yeah.
like the questions. He didn't. Zach Kiefer came out on 1% last week on their podcast and said he is not impressed with Ben Bannigan. He thought that it was immature a little bit. I don't want to put the words in Zach's mouth, but like he was not impressed. He did not see a guy who had drive to improve this year. Because he was like, I'm not talking about like he just, yeah, that's a good. I like that take. I like it. We'll see if it happens. Okay, so next up, let's see what we got next. Oh, here we go. From Chuck Favory. How well can the defense gel together with all of the offseason changes?
I mean, really, Chuck, changes wise, I don't know that let's just go through the list. I mean, you're going to have the same starting safeties. You're going to have the same starting cornerbacks. You're going to have Kenny Moore. You're going to have Xavier Rhodes, TJ Carey on the outside starting. You're going to have Leonard. You're going to have Darius Leonard. You're going to have Bobby Okereke. Is going to be out there. I think it looks like early on, I guess Zaire Franklin is out there getting, some burn as far as that goes. Interesting side note, not to get on a tangent, KJ Wright was in Indianapolis. He's kind of talked to a few different teams, the Seahawks linebacker. So that's a guy they've at least shown a level of interest in possibly bringing back out there. So we'll see what happens. You know how Ballard is. He likes to just have a lot of lines in the water and see what it goes. And then defensive end, you've got Grover Stewart and you've got DeForest Buckner on the inside. And then really your only turnover is your true defensive ends. You don't have Autry. You don't have Justin Houston on the outside. So you've got Kwity Paye, the rookie. But Tyquan Lewis is a familiar face. Great question. But to answer your question is I don't think it'll be a lot different. And I think it'll actually be a better football team this year just because of the continuity and your level of talent in the spots that you did go out there and draft are going to kind of up, that standard. I think seeing Okereke out on the field a little bit more and not having that pressure of feeling like, well, we got to get Anthony Walker out here to play, at least 30-40% of the snaps to kind of keep everybody cohesive. I think Okereke takes the next step, honestly. I think he does. And I think Blackman, we've talked about this. I think this is several podcasts ago, but yeah, I think that dude is going to be a legit Pro Bowler for a long, long time. He's just a playmaker, man. And I think that sky's the limit for this football team. And defensively, it could be a special year, man. It's going to be something really, really fun to watch for Colts Nation.
Yeah, and I'm glad you kind of ran through it too, because it's a great question. But I was kind of trying to rack my brain going, where are the big changes? I could see it if like Eberflus had left. Like that's a big change, changing D coordinators. That didn't happen.
Maybe he's talking about Gannon, going out to Philly, a different back end, the defensive back coach. But I think as far as personnel,
maybe the new edge rushers coming in too, being young.
It makes sense. It's a good question. Yeah.
I with the edge rushers with Kwity and all, with Kwity coming in, and we all know that Dio's not going to play, at least the first half of the season, but they're surrounded by a lot of veteran talent. You brought up Okereke. I think Okereke is going to be the breakout player. I've kind of thought about this more, and he kind of broke out, so it's not really this like out of nowhere. But I think he makes a Pro Bowl this year.
Wow.
I think his talent, he's sideline to sideline. He is, he only improved with snaps. His athletic ability is freakish, which is what Ballard goes for. So I think he has the probability to make a Pro Bowl this year. Like that's so out of, right field and not something, but I could see it, man. And you put him next, players are going to improve when they're surrounded by talent. We always talk about it doesn't matter who's at left tackle sometimes as much because you're slapping them down next to Big Q. It's kind of the same thing. He's tucked under Darius Leonard's hip, which I don't care what Pro Football Focus says or NFL.com or wherever you get your news. Darius Leonard is a top 3 linebacker in the NFL. Stop telling me he's not. Shut up and sit down. Go to the back of the classroom. all these people who keep saying that he's not, but you put him down, you put Okereke next to him, and like he's gonna be good. I can see it, man. I feel it in my bones.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be a special year.
So let's see. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna lump some of these. They're not really questions. We got a lot of people saying, what the heck do we have to do to get Julio Jones to Indy? First of all, Indy is not the betting favorite. They're
Yeah.
not. We talked about it last time. We had a whole episode, you guys, where we discussed Julio. It's not a Ballard move. I know Pat McAfee is like beating that drum right now to get Julio here. I really don't care where Julio goes. I don't think he's coming here. We talked about that last time. Just please, God, don't go to Tennessee. That's all I want. Just please, God, don't go to Tennessee.
Yeah, I think now, I mean, we're June 1st as we record this podcast.
Boom, yeah.
So now anything can happen. I think probably I would be absolutely shocked if before this weekend's up that Julio Jones is not traded to another team. There's no reason to hold on to him now. I fully expect for Atlanta to try to get a bidding war drummed up and get something going. It just doesn't, obviously Ballard, it's not a Ballard move. That's easy to say, but he doesn't really have the resources to get involved in this trade, right? I mean, You're looking at this year's draft capital. We're hoping that we lose a first-round draft pick, which means Carson Wentz had a successful first season, and we're probably playing in the playoffs with a chance to really do something special. And then what are you going to do? Give up your second-round pick this year, and then maybe a future even next year? It just doesn't feel like Ballard would be willing to do something like that. I'm not going to say that Ballard's not called and at least asked and inquired, because that's what all good general managers do. They want to know what's going on with it. I just don't think Ballard has any type of leverage. Like, I just don't think he has the ability to really put together a competitive package. And at the end of the day, I know it's being leaked out that, a second round pick will probably get the job done. I think when it all comes down to it, Steven, there'll be 1, 2, or 3 teams that really want him. And one team feels like this guy makes us a Super Bowl winner or a contender this year. We're going to just ante up and give that first round pick, especially if we're a team that is going to the playoffs. We're in the playoffs every year and we draft at the back half of that first round anyways. Maybe we give up a 25 to 30, a pick there and just move on. I can see Tennessee because they are pretty aggressive in free agency. But you got to feel like Julio wants to go play for somebody that really a team that has came up recently and makes a lot of sense is the Seahawks. They're aggressive. They're always out there. They've already got DK Metcalf. They've got Lockett. But man, that would be just a really good trio out there.
Scary.
It'll be interesting, but I think it will be. You're probably 8 or 10 teams this year that realistically have a chance of winning a Super Bowl. The Colts are one of those teams, and it'll be one of those teams probably that lands Julio when it's all said and done. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you with it. I'm on board with that. I just, Mason brought it up last week when we were talking. He brought up kind of what happened with Carson. We wanted Carson. We said, hey, here's our offer, and we left it until they came around to it. That as much as geeked up as I am about Carson, and everybody knows that I am, no one else wanted him. So we put that offer and they didn't get anything. According to sources that I saw on Pat McAfee, 16 teams want him. Like, that's the list, supposedly, is what's been leaked out. Is there are 6 now? The Colts are on there. They're one of those 16 teams that have, my opinion, like you said, have inquired on what the price is. But 16 teams, you're not going to be able to be like, hey, here's a second and just leave it. Someone's going to come in and give a first, man, as much as I don't want him to end up in Tennessee, I do worry, because you do see, like, you got AJ Brown literally releasing his DMs to Julio, begging him to come to Tennessee. You have Derrick Henry working out with Julio, And you have Derrick Henry coming out as of, I believe, today saying, I'll restructure my contract to get Julio here, which, in my opinion, is that not tampering to like openly
Yeah,
talk about Julio?
yeah. I mean, I guess
A touch of it. I don't mind it. It makes
no,
for
you're
fun
right.
stuff to
No,
watch.
you're right. You're right. I think it happens a little bit, especially with. I don't know if tampering really applies to players, though. I think it's like organizations can't say anything, but I
Okay.
guess players can recruit all they want.
Players
I don't
talk
know.
all the time.
At this point, yeah, I don't really know. That would suck, man. Yeah, if he ends up going to that football team, I tell you though, I can see him going to play for New England this year. I can
He's
see
come
it
out.
happen.
That's like one of the top ones they've said
I can really
because he
see
likes
that.
Cam Newton apparently.
Yeah, and I think more than that, I think that he trusts that Bill Belichick can do what he needs to do at this point in his career to help him get a world championship. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what it all boils
that's
down.
what it's about. He's
Yep,
he's the most productive wide receiver of his generation. He's had the 1,000-yard seasons. He wants a ring,
yep,
and he doesn't want to rebuild in Atlanta. Who can blame
and I
him?
don't blame him.
Go try to get it. It's not going to be an Indy. We have already joked. Emergency podcast if he ends up in Indy, because I'll sit here and I'll eat crow because I don't see it happening. That doesn't seem like a Ballard move. Okay, so next up we've got Eugene Stubbs, and basically in all caps, can our front line hold up to protect Wentz? It's a great question. It's a big question. It's probably one of the number one questions going into this break.
I think so. I think so, Eugene. I think that there's a little bit of a concern. I'm not high on Tevy at all. So if Tevy has to, I don't. I actually don't think Tevy is going to be your week one starter. I really don't. I think somebody else will beat him out on that side personally. If for some reason that Eric Fisher, I think there's reason to believe there's optimism, anyways, that Fisher at the most will miss just one or two games. He's going to be ready pretty close to the start of the season. So I think this offensive line can hold up. I think Frank's going to understand the situation that we're in. And then I think one thing that he's going to do is really, really, really understand if there's a liability on that left side, let's get the ball out faster. Let's run the football more. Let's design concepts that aren't long drawn out plays. Let's not put our offensive line in a position to not succeed, and play to their strengths. He's always done a good job of that. But I think when this offensive line is healthy in its totality, we've got a pretty damn good offensive line,
yeah.
Steve. I mean, you're looking at, I think we mentioned it the day that we did the podcast with Eric, when Eric Fisher actually got signed. I mean, you're going from the left side. You're going from the first pick in the NFL draft in Eric Fisher, first round pick. Right next to him, you're going from the sixth pick, which is the highest picked guard in NFL history. You're going to a first round pick, a top 15 pick in Ryan Kelly. Then you're going over to Glowinski, and then you're going to a top of the second round pick in Braden Smith. I mean, You're talking about investing a lot in your offensive line, and I don't see that changing. I think that Ballard's committed to putting his dollars into that offensive line, and you're going to see it over the next few years. If we sign the extension to Braden Smith, then we're going to have to extend Quentin Nelson. And I even think there's a real good possibility for us to go ahead and re-up Eric Fisher on a 2-year deal, if he's healthy and things work out. He's going to put a lot of his money in that offensive line. And I think the only turnover that happens after this year, I think Glowinski walks. I think they really like Pentner. And I think they're going to let him kind of fill that hole and that void and just take that lesser contract. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, I think the offensive line holds up very well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important too that when you listen to Reich talk too, there's been a lot of conversations with Carson of get the ball out fast. Like this is not how the offense rolls. We don't play hero ball. Get the ball out. And that's to make up for probably that left tackle, but that's also how Reich runs his offense. He's quick strike. He wants to get the ball out fast. When you've got like a Pittman who can catch and run, a Paris who can catch and run, Naheem who can catch and run, all these players who are really fast, get the ball in your playmakers' hands and let them take off. And I'm FYI too. Like, so PFF also put a ranking out and put Frank Reich as the 11th best coach in the NFL. I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I don't love it, but he for all those who say, oh, he's like he babies Carson a little bit, like maybe he's babying him. Dude, I don't know if you saw what he said, but he's like he ate humble pie last year and it does not taste good. Like, I love that. Like he kind of went, he's like, yeah, dude, for lack of a better word, yeah, Carson, man, that was a horrible year. Learn from it. He's not babying him. Like I think he's going to be able to coach him differently than anybody else because of the off-field relationship they have and the trust they have in each other. But to not get sidetracked and go back, I'm with you. I mean, we've talked about it so many times on here, just the amount of investment. And I think you hit on the head. Where would you rather invest your money as a football team? In the O-line or in the receiving core? O-line or the running back position? O-line or the tight ends? You want to invest in the line because you're going to be able to put people back there and you can protect them when you have a great offensive line. I mean, I can't remember who it was. It was a few years ago. It was when Jacoby was playing. And it was on ESPN. It was maybe Scott Van Pelt. And he's like, the O-line is a weapon. Like the Colts O-line was a weapon in one of these games. They used it to wear down the opponent throughout the game. They ran, and like we all know too, like the O-line prefers to run block because they get to hit people. They're not just sitting back. So, I mean, when Fisher gets in, this leads into the next question, which is from Matt Loxton, is when will Fisher be able to start? When Fisher gets into the lineup and gets acclimated, it's a deadly unit. And as far as like with Matt's question, I think for me, I've kind of said all along, I think he misses the first 6 games. That's kind of where I'm feeling. But dude, man, I hear reports that says like he's had this experimental Achilles surgery that he's going to be cleared in like August. I don't know. I mean, you had the best point. You were talking about Dio with it, but you had a great point where you had brought up just because you're cleared doesn't mean you practice. Just because you practice doesn't mean you're ready to play. So I've been on record that I think it's 6 games. I feel like me and you are like-minded, but I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to put words in your mouth with it.
I think he probably, if I had to guess, I think based on what they did and the contract that they signed him for, I feel like he misses just very few, honestly. I think 2 to 4 games max. I think he's going to be right in. I don't think he plays. I don't think he starts week 1.
No.
I think he'll miss at least the first couple of weeks. But if he's rolling out week 3 as your starting left tackle, I'm not surprised one bit. I think this rehab's going great. I just do, and I think that's the reason they signed him. I think they had a chance to sign. I remember they had a chance to sign Leno, and Leno ended up signing, I think, 3 or 4 days later for $5 million for 1 year. They could have taken Leno for $4.4 million less this year with absolutely no injury liability at all. And they chose to take Eric Fisher, A, because of the upside, B, because of the familiarity that Ballard has with Fisher as a person in KC, and C, because the medical's checked out. Like you don't do that for a guy that you think is going to play half a season. Like it just doesn't do you any good. You might, by the time he comes back and half the season's over with, well, then your season might be gone. You know what I mean? You don't invest in a player like that unless you think they can either jump out and really recover and be very ready to play very early in the season. So I still think he'll probably end up missing a couple games because the Colts are just going to err on the side of caution. But man, I think he plays 14 games for the Colts this year.
I like it. It's bold. I like it. I'm going to piggyback my own question. So obviously, Dio had the same exact injury. We've come to learn on the same exact day. Do you think his is projected the similar time frame? I mean, I've been on record. I think Dio doesn't play for the first half of the season. I don't think he comes in till at least week 9. But I mean, they both sound like, from all reports that we hear, they both sound like the rehab is going fantastic. And I know you are 100% right. Fisher's rehab, we said at the time, if they signed him, they saw something in the medicals that they were okay with. We joked and said when they did a physical, we knew he was going to fail the physical. The dude's got a busted Achilles, but that's not what they were looking for. They were looking for where's he at in the progress and when can he get on the field. I mean, I'm not going to disagree. I'm not. I've said kind of that 6-game mark, but 4 games, 2 games, like he's projected really well. I mean, like I said, the report I saw said he's projected to be cleared by August 1. So that's if you're cleared, that's a month worth of practices at that point through the new makeshift 3-week preseason. So, all right, we're gonna go one more question because this has been fun, man. I've had a great time answering all these. We never get to this many,
Exactly.
So Nate Heron, question: are you related to Boom? He asked the receiving core in general. Can Ty stay healthy? Is he wide receiver 1 capable? And if Pittman has continued progress, and Paris Campbell, is he going to be good enough to get consistent playing time? He kind of just runs over the entire wide receiver core, and he really truly hits on like a lot of the major questions when it comes to the receiving core.
Yes, and yes. So Campbell can be a true number 3. Can Ty stay healthy? I believe so. And then Pittman, I think, takes the natural progression. We talked about this, multiple times on multiple podcasts that we think the torch will be handed over to Pittman at some point this season. We just don't know when. He's just got to go out there and play. He's got to go out there and earn it. And there's just a time in a player's career where, you just become number 1, man. You just wake up one day, you go out there that weekend and you're just better than everybody you're going against. And you realize it and you think, okay, I'm the man now. Like I want the ball in those moments. I'm going to make those plays. We just need to see Pittman be special and make some of those plays. What really makes a wide receiver a number 1, those are the guys that make plays a lot like Reggie Wayne. They catch the balls they're not supposed to catch, right? You're looking at them and like thinking, 3 hours later, you and I are having a conversation on the phone and we're saying, how in the hell did he catch that football? You know what I mean? Like
Marvin Harrison,
that's
man.
when that's when you're going to know that Michael Pittman Jr. has arrived to the NFL. And that's when you're going to know that he's a true number 1. Like he's making these special plays that just regular guys can't make. Zach Pascal, for as much as I love his ability to play and run block and do end arounds and everything the team asks him to do, he's not making those special plays. He makes the right play. He's a great fundamental guy. He's a great glue guy, but he's not making those special plays. So his progression year after year after year, I think I saw his stats put out this morning by Zach Hicks. He caught 3 more balls this year than he did the year before. His stats are almost identical. Yeah. And that's what you get when players can't take that next step to be that special player. So I think Pittman, I think he wants to be a number 1. I think he's built to be a number 1. His pedigree is amazing. I think he's going to be awesome, and I think he's going to be the next really good. I mean, the Colts have had a hell of a history with really good wide receivers over the last 20 years, and I think he's the next one, man. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I love Michael Pittman Jr. And you talk about the lineage of Colts wide receivers. I think it's one of the cooler stories that no one really touches on a lot. I mean, you got Marvin Harrison who comes in, and for everything that's happened off the field, Marvin Harrison was an amazing player for the Colts. He Hall of Famer. And they bring Reggie in, and Marvin teaches him, which is, we want to say that's like the case in the NFL. No one, but in truth, no one wants to train the person to replace them. That's what's so cool about the wide receivers with the Colts. They do that. Like they take them under their wing. He taught Reggie. Then Reggie was there the first couple of years with Ty. He taught Ty, and Ty has openly said, like, I'm here to help. I'm here to kind of help groom these young guys and get them ready, and I've said, and I know me and you have disagreed. I've said, I think it's Reggie's last year, especially if what happens, what we talked about earlier, if Pittman takes the next step and Campbell stays healthy, I definitely think that's that's going to point towards that sign, because that's the dream. That's what you want. You want them to step up. I mean, wide receiver is going to be a question mark until they can stay healthy all season, because the last 2 years it's not been the case, and it's hurt. You know, you have Marcus Johnson catching passes, Ashton Doolin and DeMichael Harris, who I've said all the time, I love DeMichael. DeMichael's always welcome on this podcast. I've asked him to. But they're not who your number one and number two wide receiver is. You know, there's a reason they're not. So it's going to be an interesting season. You know, it really is. Okay, you guys. So we were really excited to do this. Like, for those who've listened, it's always been kind of a dream of mine to get this amount of questions. You know, it's something that from day one, it's always been there. You know, I'm not bashful. I totally stole it from Kevin Bowen. Kevin Bowen he's been on the show too, and I've told him that I took it from him, because you guys have always heard me say, me and Zach want to talk with you. We're not the kind of podcast that talks at you. We're not going to scream at you. We're not going to yell. You know, we've gotten to where we disagree with each other, but that's me and him because we talk every day. But, you know, it's so much fun to do this. Like I said at the beginning of this, I want to reiterate again, you know where to find us. It's at Stephen Burton 86, at Colt Nation 365. Is Zach's at No Horsing is another way to get to us. DM, find us on Facebook. You can hit up the page, like the Facebook page. You can send them that way too. There's all sorts of ways to get to us. We love doing it. It's also important. So I forgot to do this off the top, is this whole episode apparently is brought to you by One Call Technology, because the whole thing is social media sessions. One Call Technology, like you guys have always heard me say, is the leading telecommunication provider. Its technicians have over 100 years of experience in the telecommunications field. They specialize in business phone systems, carrier services, hosted phone systems. If you're looking at your bill and you think it's too high, you're looking at it and you're going, why am I paying $700 for my phone bill? Go to onecalltech.com. You can also give them a call, 1-888-585-8850. Yes, I'm looking down for those on YouTube because I don't give out the 1-800 number. I know this local number, but I'm not going to give you that because no one's local. So give them a shout. Tell them you know, No Horsing sent you. Like I've always joked, you might get me and I'll talk with you. The other thing I want to point out too, before we pump the merch one more time, is if you see Zach's sweet hat or you see my sweet hat, go to our Fanatics link. That's where you can get this kind of stuff. Go through it, hit it up, find yourself some sweet Fanatics gear. When you're done there, jump over to our link and get yourself a sweet shirt. They come in numerous colors. We're talking black. My white one is hopefully going to be here by the next episode. Zach actually texted me. He was like, when are you placing your order? And I did it like right then. Peer pressure. What can I say? So go over. It ships out pretty quickly. Like we've said too, and I do want to put the ask out again, Zach, like we talked about. If you've bought something from the website, hit us up. Let us know. Like, I'm really interested to see what you bought. Have you gotten it? What you think of it? Zach always says, if there's stuff that you want that we don't have, let us know. We'll get it up on there. Like, Zach's way better at this. I'm gonna let him take over. Zach's way better at pumping the merch.
Nah, man. Yeah, I just really thankful for people at least going on there and checking our store out, seeing what we got. And we just want your feedback. Like, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I like your store, but I would change this, or oh my gosh, I wish you had this, let us know. Maybe there's a way we can find a way to throw it on there. And it's just a way to support two guys who just love doing this. You know, it just helps us kind of keep going. But this episode, like Stephen kind of took the words out of my mouth, it's the most special types of episodes because you get to interact with the people that we're doing this for you guys. You know, we're doing it for us. We're doing it for you guys because at the end of the day, you know, we're a podcast for the fans. You know, I mean, we are fans. That's what we do. We love football, and we just thrive in this community because we love just interacting with you guys. So it means the world to us that you take time out of your busy schedules. We know you got a lot going on, and you message and you say, hey, I want to hear, you know, I want to get your take on this. because that we're just using our voices, you know, and we're just giving our perspectives, and we love it, man. I mean, it's just so cool. So just continue to kind of like, comment, subscribe, share. You know, if you're the visual type of person and you want to see this merch that's on me right now, you can go to YouTube, you can check us out. And we're just super grateful. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're just two guys that are super grateful to have an opportunity to use our voices. And every single week we get to keep coming back, and we keep growing every single week. We constantly are always gaining a new person into our family, you know, and that's what we are. We're a family here at No Horsing Around, and we just want to build our family, and we just want to become bigger, and we just want to have, you know, just more communication, just more opportunities to talk to you guys. And we'll pump it out as the week goes, but just kind of, if you've listened through this whole thing and you got to the end, we got a special guest coming on next Monday. We've already agreed. Some things came up this week technically, but next Monday we've got, you know, a guy, Colts beat writer, is going to come on, George Bremer, and we'll pump him out and we'll let everybody know. But he's awesome, man. I mean, you guys get a chance to listen to a guy who works actually. His whole life is built around being inside with the Colts and talking to them on a daily basis, writing articles and all that good stuff. So look forward to that. Thanks for kind of bearing with us during the off-season schedule. We scaled back to one a week just because we're trying to kind of condense. Now, if we wake up tomorrow morning and Chris Ballard shocks the world and signs Julio Jones, guess what? You get me and this guy tomorrow doing a podcast, and you'll get to see our faces and our excitement on YouTube. But otherwise, Steve, I just grateful. I had a great show, man, and I look forward to hopping on again next week.
I know. I mean, we say it all the time too. Like when we joke, Zach says it best. We're just two dudes. It's in our intro. We're just two dudes talking Colts, man. We're very blessed to be able to do it. I mean, and it's not just that. It's the fact that we have people who listen. One of the great things that I read it today when I was kind of doing a little bit of prep in my head before we were coming on was with a podcast is nobody tunes in for just to tune in. Everyone, y'all who listen, you listen because you want to hear me and Zach, which is so cool. Like, it's like when you really, if I sit like you get little goosebumps a little bit, because it's like, that is so cool that there are people out there, y'all are out there who you tune in each and every week, each and every episode to hear us. Like it's, I've said it before, it dumbfounds me that we've been able to build this. Zach says it like we're building stuff. We've got great guests who are going to come on. We're going to continue through the off season to have fans and other podcasters come on. Shout out to Vinny. He has already requested to be the next spot to come on for fans coming on. So we're excited about that. We've got some really cool, I can't really say what, but we've got some really, really cool things that are coming too. Down the pike that we're really, really excited about. Man, I'm just, it's, you know, like you said, like Zach said, rate, review, subscribe, share, follow, do all those lovely things that help build what we've got. Tell a friend, hey, I really like these guys. Check them out. I mean, we appreciate it, man. And, you know, like I say at the end of every episode, I love you. Zach loves you. We're out.